Welcome to the sleepy cosmic. Tonight, let's drift away from the noise of the world and imagine a planet reborn, not in fire or wind or stone, but in water. Close your eyes for a moment. Listen to the sound that rises beneath everything, the soft heartbeat of waves. Imagine now that this sound never ends. No land beneath your feet, no mountains, no cities, no borders, only an endless ocean stretching in every direction, glittering beneath a liquid sky. Here the horizon is everywhere and nowhere. The clouds move like sleeping thoughts across a mirror of blue, and the air carries the taste of salt and infinity. The sun rises from the water and sinks back into it, as if the sea itself is breathing light. In this world, every whisper, every ripple, becomes part of an eternal rhythm, the slow pulse of a planet that forgot what land ever felt like. You float there, weightless. The surface shimmers like glass, and beneath it, whole kingdoms of silence sway in the dark forests of coral. Drifting creatures made of light, and shadows that move like forgotten dreams. You wonder, if the entire earth was ocean, would we still call it home? Or would it feel like living inside a memory too vast to understand? Perhaps in this watery world, time itself feels slower. The days stretch like tides, and the nights glow with floating constellations, stars mirrored perfectly in the sea. Maybe life here doesn't rush. Maybe it hums. Maybe the ocean has learned what we haven't, that stillness is a kind of truth, and depth can be its own kind of peace. So, tonight, let's sink deeper into that thought. Let's drift through the mysteries of an Alotian Earth, a blue planet that never stops dreaming. Close your eyes and think there is no land, only water, shimmering, endless, breathing softly beneath an infinite sky. You float on the surface of a planet made entirely of ocean, where no horizon ever breaks into the outline of mountains or the silhouette of trees. Just a mirror of blue stretching in every direction, meeting the heavens in a quiet blur of light. The air smells faintly of salt and sunlight. The waves roll beneath you with the rhythm of a sleeping heart. For a moment, it feels like peace, pure, weightless peace. But then the thought whispers, if there is no land, where does life begin? You drift there, between curiosity and calm. The sea seems to hum, like a living thing with memories far older than yours. The sunlight above ripples through the water's skin, scattering patterns of gold and silver. You can almost hear the light itself moving, a soft crackle of warmth falling from the heavens. The air trembles with nothing but the sound of waves. Breathe, and the ocean breathes with you. Imagine this world. No continents, no islands, no cliffs where seabirds perch. Every grain of sand that once kissed a shore has dissolved into the deep. The mountains that held back rivers are gone, melted beneath miles of liquid blue. The forests that whispered to the wind are now only echoes in the planet's memory. Everything you knew, cities, valleys, deserts, and plains, erased by the patient persistence of water. The earth has become a single, shimmering sphere of sea. You might feel the tiniest ache in that thought, a longing for somewhere to stand, for something solid to hold. Humans are creatures of land. Even our dreams tend to have gravity. But here, on this oceanic earth, gravity feels softer, almost forgiving. The water cradles you like a mother who remembers every version of you that has ever been afraid. The waves lift and lower you with gentle patience. They are not violent. They are eternal. And as you float, you begin to wonder, what if this has always been the planet's true form? What if land was only ever a temporary breath, a brief interruption in an otherwise liquid eternity? Scientists once called our world the blue planet. But that blue, in this imagined future, has taken over everything. The clouds above are thick and endless, their bellies heavy with rain that never reaches ashore. It falls and returns, falls and returns, an endless cycle of sky meeting sea. Prompt from orbit, the earth would look like a perfect sapphire, glowing faintly against the dark velvet of space. No deserts to break its tone, no countenance to scatter its shape, just one vast, living ocean, glimmering under a patient sun. But here's the question that lingers. Delicate as a ripple, could life still exist here? Would the creatures of this world learn to breathe between storms, to float forever without rest, to evolve where gravity offers no place to stand? Close your eyes again. Imagine drifting down, deeper, through layers of light that fade into quiet blue. The first meters are alive with color, plankton swirling like glitter, tiny fish flickering like thoughts. But as you descend, the light thins, and the silence thickens. The pressure grows. It feels ancient, almost holy, like the ocean is holding you close to its heart. You begin to wonder how deep this ocean really goes. The Mariana Trench, the deepest part of our real Earth, reaches nearly 11 kilometers. But in this imagined ocean world, the trenches would be deeper still, vast, dark canyons running across the planet's underbelly. Pressure there would crush any ordinary vessel. Yet life might still bloom in secret, clinging to the warmth of hydrothermal vents. Tiny organisms could thrive where no sunlight ever touches, feeding on minerals from the planet's core. Perhaps evolution, given enough time, would paint whole ecosystems out of darkness itself. And what about the surface? Would clouds gather into storms that circle endlessly, birthing tempests the size of continents? Would the ocean's winds sculpt waves that climb higher than mountains once did? The mind resists it, an entire planet where land has never existed. But nature never needed our permission to rewrite its rules. There's something beautifully terrifying about it. A world where permanence is gone, where the only constant is movement, the sway of waves, the migration of currents, the dance of sunlight across shifting surfaces. Land gives shape to our lives. It lets us measure distance, direction, belonging. But remove it, and all that remains is flow, the same force that has always carried the universe forward. Maybe, Without land, there are no borders, no nations, no footprints, no history carved into stone, just stories carried by tides, whispered, forgotten, and born again with every sunrise. The ocean doesn't keep records. It simply remembers in motion. Perhaps that's a truer form of memory than the monuments we build. You look up at the sky. It seems closer now, as though the clouds lean down to listen. The horizon is not a line anymore. It's a blur, a place where the sea becomes the sky and the sky becomes the sea. There's no distinction between reflection and reality. You start to feel the quiet hypnosis of it, the slow rocking, the soft shimmer, the way every sound fades into the next until time itself feels dissolved. Would people still dream on such a world? Would they still look for purpose if there were no lands to claim or mountains to climb? Maybe meaning would shift from conquering to surrendering, from holding to floating, from building to simply being. A civilization born of water would know that nothing solid lasts forever. They would measure their lives in currents, not years. Imagine their homes, perhaps built on floating coral platforms or vast living organisms that drift like islands. Their architecture might breathe, expand, and contract with the tides. Light would be filtered through water in shades of blue and gold, painting every moment with calm. Their art might be made of sound and ripple, their songs woven with the hum of waves. Even communication might change. On a water world, sound travels farther, deeper, slower. Voices could echo for miles beneath the surface, turning speech into melody. Perhaps their words would be softer, rounder, designed to flow instead of cut. Language itself would evolve toward peace, and still, somewhere deep inside, they might carry an ancient memory, a whisper from an age when land existed, when people walked instead of drifted, when trees reached for light instead of floating within it. Maybe their myths would speak of the ground, a sacred thing, a lost legend like fire to fish. Children might dream of standing still, of feeling something unmovable beneath their feet, a fantasy both terrifying and tender. But what if such a civilization never needed land? What if evolution started here in water and never left it? Then maybe the ocean wouldn't just be home. It would be identity. The creatures of this world, human or not, would understand the rhythm of flow as the rhythm of life itself. Change wouldn't frighten them. It would define them. You can feel that rhythm now in the way your thoughts rise and fall, in the slow breathing of your chest. The sea outside and the sea inside mirror one another. Every inhale is a tide returning. Every exhale is a wave pulling away. For a moment you realize you are part of this endless ocean too. The boundaries that once defined you begin to soften. There's no shore to divide you from the rest of the world. Every drop around you has been part of countless beings. Once a tear, once a storm, once a quiet lake beneath an alien moon. The water remembers everything. It carries the fingerprints of stars, the whispers of comets, the dreams of ancient rain. You begin to sense the vast, living network beneath the surface. Millions of organisms moving in harmony, plankton drifting with moonlight, whales calling to one another across oceans, bioluminescent creatures blinking like constellations below. The ocean is a galaxy of its own, filled with light that doesn't need the sun, and you are floating in it, weightless, timeless, belonging everywhere and nowhere at once. For all the fear that comes with endlessness, there's something freeing too. The absence of land becomes the presence of possibility. No more edges, no more destinations, just the invitation to drift, to see, to listen. Perhaps this is what peace really is. Not stillness, but surrender. To float is to trust. To accept that movement doesn't mean loss, and that every wave, no matter how far it travels, is still part of the same sea. You close your eyes again. The sound of water fills everything. You don't know where you're going, or how far the current will take you. But maybe that's the point. On a planet covered only in ocean, direction becomes less important than presence. The sea cradles you once more, and for a heartbeat you feel infinite in that early chaos. Space itself was sculpting what would one day become serenity. The story of an ocean planet does not begin with peace. It begins with violence. Asteroids crashed like sparks thrown from the universe's anvil. Comets, rich with ice, fell through newborn skies, shattering on impact, releasing water that hissed and vanished into steam. Over and over it happened. Collisions, evaporation, cooling, and condensation. A rhythmic pulse, like a heart learning to beat. Could a world be born, not of rock, but of reflection? It seems impossible, doesn't it? And yet, this is how creation often moves, not in straight lines, but in spirals. What feels like destruction is sometimes the first step toward calm. Scientists at NASA call this period the planet's accretion, when dust, gas, and shattered dreams of older stars merge to form something new. To them, it's data and temperature gradient. To us, it's poetry in motion. The universe taking a deep breath and exhaling a world that would one day shimmer like a drop of dew in the dark. The newborn planet trembled. Each collision added weight and heat, until the crust began to cool. The first rains were not gentle. They were storms that could crush mountains. Steam rose in endless waves, turning the sky into a veil of silver. The world exhaled, and from its breath came clouds. Those clouds grew heavy, and after millions of years of condensation and collapse, the first ocean began to form. Picture it. A surface once made of fire slowly surrendering to water. Lava seas hardening, hissing, and cracking open like cooled glass, allowing rivers of liquid to gather in the hollows. Imagine thunder that never stopped for centuries, lightning splitting the sky into veins of white. Every drop that fell carried stardust from the comets that gave it birth. It wasn't just rain, it was the universe returning home, and then quiet. For the first time, there was blue. Not the blue we see now, alive with reflections and motion, but a dark, endless blue, heavy, thick, ancient. The ocean was not yet kind. It was deep and unknown, but it was alive in the way all beginnings are, full of potential and quiet chaos. If you could have stood there, hovering above that young world, you'd have seen something breathtaking. Clouds coiling around the globe like soft white ribbons, lightning flickering through their fold. Fire, and beneath it all, a glimmering sphere wrapped entirely in water. From the darkness of space, it would look like a living eye, watching, waiting, dreaming of what might come next. Even now, astronomers search the skies for such worlds. NASA's Kepler and TESS missions have found hints of planets where water dominates everything. Ocean planets, aqua worlds, worlds of eternal tide. Some are thousands of light years away, orbiting stars colder or hotter than our own. By their existence whispers that we might not be alone in our love for water. The cosmos repeats its art again and again, painting with the same brushstroke of blue. But why does that matter to us? Because this story isn't just about how a planet forms. It's about how calm can emerge from chaos. The same processes that forged an ocean planet also forged you. The heat that once boiled the skies mirrors the pressure that shaped your own beginnings. Every cell in your body carries hydrogen that once drifted through space as vapor, waiting for a world to hold it. When you breathe, you echo the sigh of that first ocean. When you cry, you return a drop to its origin. The ocean planet continues to cool. The storms begin to settle. The sky clears for the first time in eons, revealing the sun, golden, gentle, new. Light dances across the waves, and reflection is born. The planet has finally found its rhythm. The waves rise and fall with the calm certainty of breath. The newborn world exhales its first mist, and in that exhalation, something sacred stirs. You can almost feel it, the hush that follows creation. The moment after the final storm, when the world simply exists, whole and waiting. The surface still ripples with heat, but beneath, in the quiet trenches of shadow and depth, water begins to cool into stillness. Molecules collide, separate, and bond again, tiny, invisible dancers that will, one day, give rise to life. There's poetry in that patience. Nothing rushes. The planet knows that birth requires time, and as it floats, spinning slowly in the cosmic dark, it reflects the light of the stars around it, as though saying, I am ready. We are made of stories like this, where chaos softens into calm, where fire becomes water, where what once burned learns to flow. The birth of an ocean planet is the birth of possibility itself. Every ripple, every cloud, every breath of vapor rising from that endless sea is a reminder that peace is not the absence of violence. It's what remains after the storm chooses to rest. Look again at this world in your mind, pure, glistening, alive with blue. It has no countenance, no deserts, no mountains yet, but it has rhythm. It has reflection. It has begun. The universe has found one more way to dream of itself, and you, floating here, be imagining this moment, are part of that same dream. Because when you think about it, maybe we were never meant to live only on solid ground. Maybe, deep down, something in us still remembers what it felt like to be surrounded by water, to be born from it, to belong to it, to let it carry us. The ocean planet turns, shimmering quietly under the newborn sun, its heart still cooling, its surface whispering with waves. And somewhere in that sound, the soft lapping of infinity against itself. The universe hums the same song it always has. Be still, and begin again. If you were to look upon this ocean planet from above, you might think it was endless, a mirror stretched across eternity. But every mirror hides a secret. Beneath that smooth and gleaming surface lies a world unseen, a geography sculpted in silence. What shapes lie beneath the blue, unseen yet alive? Imagine yourself drifting down, past the silver shimmer of sunlight, where the waves kiss the air. At first, it feels calm, the kind of calm that invites you to breathe slower. Light dances around you like liquid glass, colors shifting from bright turquoise to deep cobalt. The water hums faintly with distant energy, the kind that makes you feel small in the best possible way. But as you descend further, the blue begins to fade. Red disappears first, then orange, then yellow, as though the spectrum itself is holding its breath. The deeper you go, the more the world forgets color, until finally, all that remains is a blue so dark it almost feels like thought itself, and still you sink. Pressure wraps around you like a quiet embrace. Every meter deeper feels like entering another world, one untouched by time or sound. Silence hums beneath miles of water. Not the kind of silence that feels empty, but the kind that feels ancient, purposeful. It is the silence of creation, of something vast, learning to whisper instead of roar. Here, in this infinite blue darkness, the geography begins to reveal itself, not with sight, but with sense. Massive mountain ranges rise from the ocean floor, unseen continents made of rock and shadow. Valleys stretch wider than the Grand Canyon, carved not by wind or river, but by the slow dance of shifting crust and molten breath below. Volcanoes sleep here, too not dead, merely dreaming. Occasionally, one awakens, exhaling plumes of black smoke and shimmering heat into the freezing dark, as if reminding the ocean that fire still lives beneath its calm. It's strange, isn't it? How something that looks so tranquil from above can hide a world so alive, so dynamic, so full of secret motion. We do this too. We show the surface, the part that looks smooth and controlled, while beneath it all, entire mountains shift in silence. You can almost feel it, the tremor of unseen forces moving, reshaping the ocean's underworld grain by grain. These ridges and plains, these trenches and domes, all form a kind of heartbeat for the planet. They are its unseen architecture, sculpted over millions of years, quietly writing the geography of its soul. In the faint light of bioluminescence, the deep begins to glow, not bright, not loud, but soft and deliberate. tiny organisms drift past, like embers in slow motion, carrying their own starlight. They flicker in patterns that seem almost intelligent, as if the darkness itself has learned to communicate. You are surrounded by an alien beauty that doesn't need sunlight to exist. Down here, life finds its own way to shine. But think about that for a moment. Life in a place that never sees the sun. Isn't that a kind of miracle? We often imagine survival as something that depends on light, on warmth, on abundance. But the universe teaches us again and again that life is not fragile. It's persistent. It blooms in the cracks, in the cold, in the depths where nothing should live, yet somehow does. That is resilience in its purest form. Quiet, humble, unstoppable. You can't help but feel a strange sense of kinship with this hidden world. The deeper you go, the more it mirrors the unseen parts of yourself, the quiet corners of your mind where your own geography hides, the ridges of memory, the valleys of doubt, the glowing sparks of hope that flicker in your darkest hours. Beneath our surface smiles, beneath the daily waves, we are all oceans deep, unseen, layered, alive. The planet's crust hums faintly with geothermal warmth, and the water above absorbs its rhythm. It's subtle, a pulse, a vibration. Somewhere a fissure opens, releasing a swirl of minerals and heat that drift upward, feeding invisible currents. This is where the first whispers of life will one day emerge. Not from sunlight, but from fire. Not from the sky, but from below. The seeds of existence stirred by pressure, patience, and the quiet certainty that something must come next. Even now, before life has begun, you can sense the promise in the water. It moves like a thought waiting to be spoken. The stillness is deceptive. Beneath it, the ocean is breathing. It's as if the planet itself knows it's being prepared for something sacred. Every tremor of the seafloor, every swirl of heat, every flicker of light is a rehearsal for the first act of life. There's awe in that. The idea that darkness can be beautiful, that what we can't see can still hold wonder. We are taught to fear the deep, to cling to the surface. But sometimes it's in the descent, in letting go of what glimmers, that we discover the world's most luminous truths. And as you float there, weightless in the thick velvet of this alien ocean, you realize that the surface was never the whole story. The calm waves and gentle blues were merely an invitation to look closer. True beauty, true creation, hides beneath, in the silence, in the unknown, in the shadows that shimmer with unseen fire. The ocean planet continues its slow rotation beneath the distant sun. Its surface glows softly, giving no hint of the mountains and valleys sleeping far below. Yet those unseen forms shape everything. The tides, the currents, the rhythm of the waves above. It's the hidden that gives meaning to the visible, the invisible that gives shape to the seen. And maybe, just maybe, that's true for us too. When you next look out at the ocean, or even at your own reflection, remember that beneath every still surface lies a world of motion. Beneath every calm exterior, a pulse, beneath every silence, a story waiting to be told. Because beneath the waves, life is always preparing to begin. Light is the first thing we notice, and the first thing we lose. At the surface of the newborn ocean planet, sunlight pours down in waves of gold and white, painting the water with shifting mirrors. It's a dance of reflection, a shimmering ballet that ripples endlessly, like the heartbeat of the sky itself. But light, fragile as it is, cannot stay. It travels downward, hesitant and curious, only to be swallowed by the deep. What begins in brilliance slowly fades, as though the ocean is teaching the light how to rest. When sunlight first touches water, it bends a small act of surrender. The light slows, refracts, and scatters, each color separating into its own gentle layer. Reed vanishes first, dissolving in the upper shallows like a memory that fades too soon. Then goes orange, then yellow, each wave of color absorbed, each one leaving a softer hue behind. Green lingers for a while, blending into turquoise before surrendering to only blue remains, soft, patient, eternal. It descends where no other color dares, surviving longer than warmth, longer than brightness, longer than almost everything. Why does blue endure? Why does it linger when all others fade? Maybe because blue is both light and longing. It is the color of distance, the sky above, the sea below, the infinite in between. Blue carries the feeling of something that is both here and far away, something that exists not to dazzle but to soothe. It doesn't demand attention. It invites peace, and in that quiet endurance, blue becomes the language of depth, the color of calm that remains after everything else has let go. As the light fades, so does the noise of the world above. Waves soften, movement slows. The deeper the descent, the quieter the mind becomes. Deeper, darker, quieter, until the rhythm of thought itself begins to slow. The ocean's depths do not feel like an absence of light, but a return to stillness. In losing color, the world becomes whole again, simple, pure, unburdened by brightness. The loss is not tragic. It's beautiful. In this underwater cathedral, light is not gone. It is transformed. The blue that remains becomes something spiritual, a gentle echo of what once was. Even the shadows shimmer with it. And as darkness deepens, there comes a moment when the eye stops searching and starts feeling instead. You don't see anymore. You sense. You don't think, you listen. This is how the ocean teaches you what peace really is. Not the silence of nothingness, but the fullness of stillness. In the depths, there are no distractions, no colors to chase, no edges between one thing and another. Just the gentle understanding that light, like thought, was never meant to last forever, only to guide you until you find your way inward. There's something deeply human in that, isn't there? We chase brightness, success, attention, the shimmering reflections at the surface of life, forgetting that meaning often hides in the quiet, in the unlit corners of the self. We fear the dimming, the fading, the letting go. But what if darkness isn't the end of light, but its evolution? What if the fading of color is not a loss, but a shift into something deeper, something felt rather than seen? As the ocean deepens, the rays of the sun scatter into whispers. Some of them bounce off particles, some dissolve into heat, others vanish into memory. And yet, even in this slow extinction, there's grace. Every fading photon tells a story of distance traveled, of transformation accepted. The light has not died. It has changed form, just as our brightest moments eventually soften into wisdom. So, too, does light learn to rest within the dark. When you close your eyes, the world goes dark, yet your mind still glows with images, memories, fragments of color. The ocean is the same. Beneath miles of water, where sunlight no longer reaches, the deep begins to invent its own light. Bioluminescent creatures drift like floating dreams, tiny stars reborn in the abyss. They remind us that even when everything seems lost, life will always find a way to glow again. The dance never truly ends. It just changes partners. The deeper we go, the more the boundaries between light and dark blur. They merge, coexist, and finally dissolve. It's not a fight, it's a surrender. And that surrender feels oddly peaceful. The world above is full of edges and contrasts, day and night, joy and sorrow, beginning and end. But down here, beneath the waves, those opposites melt into one slow, breathing harmony. The ocean becomes a metaphor for the mind at rest, infinite.com, unbroken. There's a quiet power in realizing that the same laws of light and color that govern the ocean also shape us. We reflect what we love. We absorb what we cannot keep. Weed, change, endure. And somewhere within that process, we learn what it means to be whole. At the bottom of this endless sea, there are no reds or yellows, no greens or golds, only the soft, eternal blue of awareness itself. Bars, the color of peace, of vastness, of still thought. It is the hue of surrender, not defeat, of transformation, not loss. To look into that blue is to look inward, into the space beyond distraction, beyond definition. And maybe that's the quiet truth the ocean has always held. That light was never about brightness, but about connection. It was never about being seen, but about seeing, seeing deeply, seeing inwardly, seeing through, when the last trace of light disappears. You finally understand. The dance of color was never a performance for the eye. It was a meditation for the soul. Even here, in a world without land, without roots or soil or trees to anchor the wind, life stirs. It begins as something invisible, something smaller than the smallest thought. Not in sunlight, not in air, but in the dark warmth where fire meets water, at the ocean's hidden vents, deep beneath miles of stillness. From the mouth of the earth, minerals rise in shimmering clouds, and in that mingling of heat and cold, chemistry begins to dream. It starts not as movement, but as rhythm, a pulse, a flicker. Molecules twist and meet, finding balance in chaos. The water hums faintly with potential, like a heartbeat you can't quite hear but somehow feel. This is where life learns its first lesson. Survival begins not in abundance, but in pressure, in silence, in darkness. Tiny lives rise like bubbles, each a spark of persistence. They drift, they grow, they glow. They feed on the minerals that seep from the planet's crust and on the warmth that has no sun. These first organisms are not grand or graceful. They are humble, fragile, trembling on the edge of existence. And yet, within them lies everything, every forest, every creature, every heartbeat that will ever follow. It's easy to forget that even on our own world, life began this way, not in light, but in the deep. It began where it shouldn't have, where the odds were stacked against it. But life has never been about odds. Pitch, it's about rhythm. Bow, the stubbornness to continue. The same rhythm that lives in your chest, in the inhale and exhale that keeps you tethered to this world, existed here billions of years ago, in these invisible oceans of beginnings. If you listen closely, you can almost hear it. The soft bubbling of new worlds forming in silence. The whisper of ancient breaths stirring in the dark. The ocean planet inhales slowly, then exhales, not with lungs, but with tides. The water itself becomes the planet's breath, a vast circulatory system pulsing with warmth and motion. Every current that rises carries the memory of its source. The fire below, the cool above, by, and the endless in-between, where life now floats. The first cells divide, slowly, awkwardly, each one a quiet rebellion against the emptiness that surrounds it. Some learn to trap energy from chemical reactions. Others drift closer to the faint blue shimmer of the upper sea. None of them know what they are doing. None of them know what they will become. But that's how all beginnings are: uncertain, imperfect, miraculous. Over time, the ocean becomes a tapestry of movement. Microbes gather in invisible clouds, forming colonies that drift through the currents like galaxies made of light. When sunlight filters down, weak, fragmented, beautiful, some of these cells capture it, transforming it into energy. The ocean begins to glow with unseen photosynthesis, a pulse of new life feeding on starlight reflected through water. Can you imagine it, where, with no land, yet full of living breath? No forests, but floating gardens of plankton that shimmer beneath the waves. No cities, but entire ecosystems drifting together, feeding and being fed upon, rising and falling with the tides. The planet that once seemed silent now sings softly, a melody of respiration and renewal. Every creature that will ever breathe wails. Birds, humans, owes its rhythm to this first oceanic inhale. Breath itself is ancient. It began here, in this water, in this blue womb of creation. Prove this to remember. To inhale is to acknowledge the persistence of everything that came before you, every molecule that refused to stop moving, every spark that refused to fade. And even as life grows, It learns to adapt, to endure change, to dance with the unknown. When currents shift, the plankton move with them. When light fades, some find new energy in the heat that seeps from the planet's bones. Life never resists change. It flows with it. Perhaps that is why it survives. There's a lesson in that, a quiet, powerful one. When we face our own deep waters, when darkness surrounds us, our instinct is to hold our breath, to resist, to tighten. But maybe, like the first life of this ocean planet, we are meant to flow, to let go of control and trust that movement itself, no matter how slow, is enough. Because it was enough for life to begin. Scientists often say life requires 3 things: water, energy, and time. But maybe it also needs faith, the kind of silent knowing that even in the absence of light, warmth can be found. The kind of resilience that doesn't roar but whispers, "Keep going." That is what these first creatures embodied: persistence without proof, faith without sight. In the soft blackness of the ocean, the colonies of life begin to expand. Tiny membranes connect, forming filaments, networks, structures. They drift like lace across the water, each thread fragile, yet together unbreakable. It's a quiet miracle, unity born from uncertainty. Bevit in the vastness of the unknown, collaboration becomes survival. And as the planet continues to breathe, so too does life. The ocean exhales oxygen into its depths, an invisible offering to everything that will come next. The water carries it upward, mixing it into the currents that ripple across the surface. The atmosphere begins to change, slowly, subtly. Breath becomes a bridge between sea and sky, between planet and possibility. Life has survived, not by conquering its surroundings, but by belonging to them, by surrendering to the rhythm that has always been there, the inhale and exhale of creation itself. And maybe that's the secret that this ocean planet holds, that survival isn't about dominance, tear. It's about harmony, about remembering that even in an endless sea, even in a world of uncertainty, the instinct to live, to breathe, never truly fades. So when you think of life on a distant world, don't picture cities or civilizations. Picture something smaller, a flicker, a pulse, a single cell drifting through blue eternity. That is enough, because from that single breath, everything else will follow. Even here, in a world without land, life doesn't just survive. It learns to sing. Imagine a world where weather has no edges, no interruptions, no land to break its rhythm. A planet where storms are free to wander in time, eternal and whole. Here, the sky and the sea are not 2 halves of a system, but one endless cycle of motion, breath, and change. Clouds are born, not above mountains, but from the very breath of the ocean itself, rising and dissolving in a dance that never stops. Without countenance to draw borders, every gust of wind, every drop of rain, belongs everywhere and nowhere at once. The first rain began softly, gentle curtains of silver threading down from the heavens. Each drop met its twin reflection in the waves below, merging into an infinite exchange of giving and taking. The ocean exhaled vapor. The sky returned it as rain. It was a rhythm as old as time. But here, on this water world, it had no boundaries, no limits. The storms did not arrive and pass. They simply were. Without the friction of land, the winds grew wiser, not weaker. They stretched endlessly, circling the globe in slow, spiraling patterns that carried warmth and whispers across hemispheres. A single gust born in twilight could travel for weeks before fading into dawn. There was no north or south, no equator to divide, only gradients of gray and blue that drifted into one another like the layers of a dream. And yet there was balance in this restlessness. For every tempest there was calm. The surface shimmered with fleeting peace before another storm arrived, as though the planet itself was breathing deep, slow, rhythmic. Thunder rolled not as chaos, but as heartbeat. Lightning laced the sky, not in violence, but in conversation, illuminating the endless dialogue between water and vapor. Each strike a reminder that energy never rests, it only changes form. Have you ever thought about how weather defines us on Earth? We use it to measure our days, to know when to rest, when to plant, when to travel. But what if there were no seasons, no shores, no anchor to say this is here and that is there? Would we lose our sense of place? Or would we finally understand that everything, every droplet, every gust is part of the same continuous whole? On this ocean planet, there are no pauses. The concept of clear skies is not an escape, but a brief exhale in an infinite breath. Sometimes the rain falls for years, unbroken. It blurs horizon and reflection until even direction becomes irrelevant. Up and down dissolve into the same color, soft blue, fading to deep indigo. Beneath that veil, light bends, dances, and vanishes. The air hums with moisture, heavy and forgiving. It's a kind of silence you can feel, like being wrapped inside a living pulse. NASA scientists once speculated about exoplanets like this world's where oceans stretch for thousands of kilometers, with no land to stop a storm's momentum. Believe winds there could reach speeds that would erase anything solid, if anything solid existed at all. Yet within such intensity, there's a profound order. The planet regulates itself through motion, through release. The constant evaporation cools, the endless rain nourishes. It's not chaos, it's self-sustaining peace disguised as turbulence. Think of the rain as memory. Each droplet once belonged to the ocean, then the clouds, and then returned again. It's the planet's way of remembering itself, of recycling its own essence in a cycle that knows neither beginning nor end. There's something deeply human in that, isn't there? To move through cycles of emotion, of thought, of change, sometimes calm, sometimes storm. And yet we remain whole, even when the wind forgets our direction. The clouds here never rest because there is nowhere to land. They drift endlessly, whispering their stories back to the sea. The clouds have nowhere to go, you might say, so they sing to the ocean. Their song is made of thunder and mist, echoing through eternity, painting the planet's skin with motion. It's a symphony of balance, chaotic, beautiful, necessary. In the quiet, after lightning fades, the air tastes clean, reborn. The rain lingers as a silver mist, softening the horizon, blurring sky and water until even the sun's reflection seems unsure where it begins. There's a calmness here that isn't stillness, it's surrender. Nature has no choice but to flow, to continue, to evolve. And maybe that's what peace really is. Not the absence of storms, but the acceptance that they belong. If you listen closely, you can almost hear it, the planet breathing. The cycle of vapor and rain, warmth and cool, light and dark. It's not unlike our own lungs, our own heartbeat. Every inhale, every exhale, a reflection of this cosmic weather. A reminder that we, too, are systems of motion. We, too, are wither without borders. As the endless storm drifts into the distance, you begin to realize something profound. The ocean planet doesn't fight its chaos. It flows through it, and in doing so, it becomes eternal. Just like us, when we stop resisting the winds of change and allow ourselves to be carried, not broken, but remade. Here, on this boundless blue world, there is no sky above and sea below, only movement, only breath, only being. The rain keeps falling, and somehow that's enough. But storms, even eternal ones, have a kind of memory. Over time, patterns begin to form, subtle, unseen, but deeply consistent. Warm currents spiral upward, where sunlight lingers longest, while cooler shadows stretch across the planet's darker side. These invisible rivers of air and vapor begin to weave a global heartbeat, pulsing through the atmosphere like veins through living skin. What seems at first like chaos becomes choreography. Every gust has a destination, every raindrop a purpose. At the equator of this ocean world, the warmth of constant sunlight draws vapor upward in colossal spirals. Towering storm systems rise like pillars, swirling and shimmering as if they're alive. They churn for months, years, centuries, perhaps before unraveling gently into rain that drifts across the horizon. And still there is no edge to find. The storm simply passes into itself, looping endlessly like a melody that never resolves. In that repetition, there's a strange serenity, a sense that nothing truly ends. It just changes shape in the higher latitudes. The winds grow cold and sharp, twisting vapor into ribbons of mist that shimmer like ghosts above the waves. Here the storms whisper instead of roar. They hum through the fog, low and patient. Lightning becomes rare, more a pulse than a strike, and rain turns to ice dust that drifts instead of falls. The surface below remains untouched, a mirror unbroken. It's as though the planet has moods, restless near its heart, reflective at its edges. We often think of weather as something that happens to us. Rain that interrupts, storms that threaten, winds that take control. But on this world, weather isn't intrusion, it's identity. It's the skin of the planet breathing, its pulse visible in vapor and rain. Without land to separate sky from sea, the two have merged into one living body, constantly renewing itself. Every cloud is an exhale, every drop a heartbeat returning home. It's what life would look like if it could only move, only feel, never stop. And in this endless motion, beauty reveals itself, not in stillness, but in surrender. The kind of surrender we, too, fear to let go of control, to drift with what comes. Yet the ocean planet shows us that flow isn't weakness, it's endurance. When the storm grows fierce, the waves don't resist, they yield, they bend, they absorb. They allow the energy to pass through them, and in doing so, they remain whole. What if we lived that way? What if, instead of resisting change, we let it pass through us, shaping us, but never breaking us? Sometimes, in the thick of the planet's eternal dusk, bioluminescent clouds shimmer faintly across the surface. The lightning deep below reflects upward through mist, painting the sky with hues of green and violet. It's as if the planet itself dreams while awake, breathing color into the storm. Imagine standing there, suspended between sea and sky, feeling the static hum through the air like a living pulse. You wouldn't know where you ended and the planet began. You'd simply be. A single note in the grand rhythm of a storm that never sleeps. There's something comforting in the predictability of the unpredictable. The endless circulation of energy ensures balancer, natural truths echoed in every system, from galaxies to our own emotions. Nothing stays still, and yet nothing is ever lost. Each droplet that evaporates returns as rain. Each gust that rises falls silent again. Even the lightning, so fierce in its moment, fades back into quiet vapor. The ocean planet doesn't fight its impermanence, perfectly expressed. And maybe that's what the cosmos keeps trying to teach us. That peace isn't found by escaping the storms, but by seeing the rhythm inside it. But the storm itself is harmony wild, imperfect, eternal harmony. There are no borders to separate destruction from creation, no line dividing the violent from the gentle. Every surge of energy feeds another calm. Every collapse is a renewal. The ocean planet breathes through extremes, finding balance in the very heart of motion. If you listen long enough, you can hear the quiet logic behind it all. The wind doesn't ask where it's going. The rain doesn't hesitate before falling. The thunder doesn't question its own echo. They simply are. And in their being, there's no mistake. Perhaps that's why the ocean world feels so deeply alive, because it embodies something we've forgotten. Trust. Trust in motion. Trust in uncertainty. Trust that even in the storm there is purpose. When the global clouds drift toward twilight, the light softens. It scatters through the mist, turning the endless sea into liquid glass. The storms calm to a gentle sigh. For a moment, the entire planet glows in quiet reflection, as if exhaling after eons of breath. It's a brief pause, not an ending, but a heartbeat between waves. The air cools, the rain slows, and the planet feels ... content. You can almost sense it, thinking, or maybe remembering, that this motion, this endless weather, is its way of being alive. The planet doesn't yearn for stillness. It doesn't crave a shore. Its perfection lies in its imperfection, its peace in perpetual change. And as you drift through that thought, watching the rain return to sea and rise again into sky, you realize something subtle but profound. Maybe our souls work the same way. Maybe we are all ocean planets inside vast, restless, and whole only when we flow. The storms that pass through us are not meant to be conquered, but to be listened to. There, the sound of life remembering itself over and over without end. And so the rain falls again, gentle at first, then stronger, then forever. Beneath the endless silver surface of this ocean planet lies a world few would dare to imagine. Down where sunlight is just a memory, and the pressure is strong enough to crush steel into surrender. Something ancient and miraculous begins to stir. It is here, in the quietest corners of existence, that life finds its boldest form. Not loud, not bright, not fast, but patient, enduring, almost sacred in its stillness. Imagine opening your eyes to the deep. The light above fades until blue turns to black, and black to something beyond color, a silence so complete it hums in your bones. Then, from that infinite dark, a flicker appears, a soft pulse of green, then another of gold, like distant campfires across a void. They drift closer, not with speed, but with grace, the ancient choreography of beings that have never known ground. Eyes like lanterns, skin like glass, bodies that ripple with slow luminescence. Every movement is a whisper, every glow a language. These are not monsters, though from a distance they might seem so. They are architects of their own serenity. Evolution, sculpted by time and water, has given them shapes that would seem impossible on land. Translucent veils instead of skin, flowing appendages that trail like silk in unseen currents. Their bones, if you can call them that, are threads of light woven into motion. And their hearts, if such hearts exist, beat in rhythm with the slow pulse of the sea. Some of them drift like living constellations, vast as cities, each glowing cell part of a greater mind. Others are no larger than your hand, yet carry within them the same will to survive, to connect, to exist. When they communicate, they do not speak. They shimmer. They sing through vibration, waves of low frequency that travel farther than any sound we could make. To listen to them is to feel emotion turned into current. Joy hums like warmth. Fear feels like a drop in pressure. Curiosity glows brighter than bioluminescence. It's strange, isn't it, that even here, in a place where no light can reach, connection still matters. That life, no matter how alien, still seeks to be seen, or at least felt. These creatures, without eyes in the human sense, perceive one another through rhythm, pulse, and glow. Their communication is empathy in motion. They do not compete the way life on land often does. They coexist, suspended together in quiet necessity. They share the dark like a shared heartbeat, and yet the deeper you go, the stranger it becomes. The giants of the abyss, leviathans with translucent flesh and veins that carry shimmering fluids. Instead of blood, drift through miles of silence as though in thought. Their movement stirs the water in waves that can travel for days. They feed not just on smaller organisms, but on energy itself, absorbing the faint thermal breath of hydrothermal vents, those deep, fiery cracks in the ocean floor that glow like the planet's pulse. They are drawn to warmth, as if remembering the time when all life came from fire in their slow motion. You sense something profound, a patience we've forgotten. They move through the water not in search of conquest, but in rhythm with eternity. Each turn of their immense bodies is deliberate, graceful. They live without rush because they exist without scarcity. The ocean gives everything, endlessly recycling death into life, decay into glow. In a sense, every creature here is a continuation of something older. The deep has no past or future, only flow. And yet there's imagination even in the silence. Picture a form of intelligence that doesn't build, doesn't destroy, doesn't reach upward, but expands inward. A consciousness that feels through vibration, that dreams in color and sound. What would wisdom mean in such a place? Perhaps it wouldn't be about answers at all, but about awareness. Knowing the rhythm of one's surroundings, the harmony between being and belonging. These creatures may not know of stars or land, but they live the truth of existence more fully than we ever could, to be part of something vast and unending. Sometimes, as they drift, their lights align in patterns that resemble constellations. Scientists might one day call it coincidence, a trick of motion and perception. But if you look closely, you might see something more intentional. Formations that resemble the flow of waves. Spirals that echo the mathematics of galaxies. It's as though, even in the deep, life remembers the sky, the cosmos reflected inward. And maybe that's the secret these creatures hold, that life doesn't need light to shine. That consciousness doesn't require eyes or language to express wonder. That intelligence isn't about domination, but awareness. In the deepest dark, awareness becomes art. Every shimmer, every hum, every slow turn of a fin through the void is a kind of worship, not of gods, but of existence itself. When we look at the deep from above, we often imagine loneliness, a void where nothing can live. But if we could listen, truly listen, we might hear the hum of communication that never stops. We might sense the companionship of the unseen. Even in the blackest depths, life is never alone. It adapts, it connects, it glows, and perhaps that's the reflection we're meant to see. Because deep down, we are not so different. We to drift through vastness, searching for warmth, for recognition, for another light to answer our own. We to carry invisible luminescence, thoughts, emotions, dreams that we send out. hoping someone, somewhere, feels them. So maybe the creatures of the deep are mirrors, not mysteries. They remind us that darkness doesn't erase beauty, it reveals it. Bow that silence isn't emptiness. It's the space where meaning can echo, and that even when the world feels cold and unending, we still glow, quietly, softly. Together there comes a night, though here. Night is only a word when the storms soften, and the endless surface lies still enough to mirror the sky. But there is nothing to mirror any more. No constellations, no moon, no pale dust of galaxies whispering across infinity. Only clouds, vast, soft, unbroken, turning gently in the wind. The ocean below reflects them like a second sky, and for a moment you can't tell which is which. Above and below dissolve into one. There is no up, there is only endlessness. Open your eyes and imagine a world where the stars have never existed. No Polaris to guide the wanderers, no crescent moon to mark the rhythm of time, no constellations to tell stories beneath. The sky is not black or blue, it's gray, illuminated by the faint shimmer of reflected light from the ocean itself. Everything glows, faintly alive, yet everything feels dreamlike, as if the world never fully wakes. What happens to dreams when there are no stars to hold them? What happens to meaning when direction disappears? Life continues, of course. The waves still move, the winds still circle, the creatures still rise and fall with the tides. But something subtle is missing, not from the world, but from awareness. The beings of this planet have never looked up to wonder. Their eyes, their instincts, their myths, all turn inward or downward, never beyond. The idea of above has no meaning here. Their universe ends at the clouds. You can almost feel the loneliness in that thought, can't you? Because deep down, humans are creatures of direction, always looking toward something, a star, a goal, a hope, a light that says, there's more than this. But on this ocean planet, there is no such promise. The heavens are hidden, the cosmos erased from sight. And yet, maybe that erasure is not a loss, but an awakening. When you can't look up, you begin to look within, over generations. The inhabitants, whether intelligent beings or drifting forms of awareness, begin to invent their own constellations, not in the sky, but in sound, in motion, in memory. The pattern of a current becomes mythology. The rhythm of lightning becomes prophecy. The sea itself becomes the cosmos, each wave a star, each storm a story. The absence of the heavens forces imagination to fill the void, to turn inward until meaning is born from memory instead of light. And in a way, isn't that what humans do, too? When our skies darken, when we lose direction, or when hope fades, we begin to imagine constellations inside ourselves. We turn our thoughts into stars. We remember voices, faces, moments, and string them together like celestial maps to remind ourselves where we've been. Even when we can't see the sky, we carry its reflection within us. Still, There's an ache in the thought of no stars. Because stars are not just light. They are memory made visible. Each one a ghost of something long gone. Its glow a story still traveling across the dark. They are reminders that distance doesn't erase connection. Without them, time itself feels softer, harder to measure. The ocean world exists in a kind of eternal now, an unbroken present with no horizon to divide what was from what will be. There's beauty in that timelessness, but also a quiet grief. Perhaps the creatures of this world sense something missing they can't name. In their songs, in the way they pulse and glow. There's a longing that seems ancient, a kind of reaching, though they don't know what for. It's as if, deep within their genetic memory, there lingers an echo from a universe where stars once existed. A memory not of seeing light, but of wanting it. The yearning to reach beyond, even when there is nothing beyond to reach for. And isn't that longing the essence of life itself? To yearn for something unseen, to stretch into mystery, even when there's no guarantee of discovery. Whether in a vast galaxy or a silent sea, that reaching is what defines consciousness. It's not the stars themselves that give meaning, it's the search for them. So the ocean planet drifts through its days and nights, unaware that above the clouds, beyond the vapor, the stars are still there, hidden, patient, waiting. Their light filters faintly through the mist, but never enough to reveal themselves. And yet that light still touches the waves in secret ways. It refracts through layers of water and air, becoming invisible warmth, subtle color, soft energy that stirs the tides. The stars may be unseen, but they are not gone. They are the silent architects of everything that breathes. Maybe that's the truth of faith, not in religion, but in existence itself. That the things we cannot see still guide us. That the unseen is not empty, but foundational. Just as gravity binds without light, perhaps hope binds without proof. Even a world without stars is still shaped by their absence. Even a mind without direction still drifts toward. Meaning, close your eyes for a moment. And imagine standing on that planet, surrounded by water, blanketed by mist. The sky glows faintly silver. The air hums with life. There are no stars, no moon, no edge to look toward. And yet, something inside you still looks. That instinct to search, to wonder, is the same spark that built civilizations, wrote symphonies, painted the night sky. You are made of that longing. It is what keeps the soul alive. So maybe the stars aren't truly lost. Maybe they've simply moved into us. Every thought that reaches beyond what is known. Every dream that resists limitation. Every act of curiosity is a star reborn within the human mind. The cosmos didn't vanish from the sky. It migrated inward, lighting the vast ocean of our consciousness. And when you look out across the endless sea of this imagined world, no horizon, no starlight, you can almost feel that truth ripple through you. The stars were never just out there. They've always been here, glowing quietly in the dark waters of the soul. Imagine waking up every day to the same horizon. No mountains to climb, no forests to wander, no walls to lean against. Just an unending sea stretching in every direction, breathing in slow, endless rhythm. The sound of waves replaces time itself. There is no morning or night, no beginning or end, only motion. The world moves, but it never changes. You might think that would drive the mind into madness, but maybe, with enough time, it would do the opposite. Maybe it would bring peace, because when everything repeats, the noise of difference fades away. The mind, at first restless, begins to sync with the rhythm. The splash, the drift, the quiet hum of wind against water, they stop being background sounds and start becoming heartbeat. Repetition, once unbearable, turns into belonging. Have you ever stared at a flame for so long that it stopped feeling like time was passing? That's what infinity does to thought. It smooths it down until thinking itself becomes a kind of breathing dot. At first, consciousness fights it. It searches for change, a pattern, a point of focus, a story. But there are none. The sea is always moving, yet never different. The mind has no new data to feed on, and so it begins to feed on itself. It starts remembering, reimagining, inventing. The ocean becomes a mirror not of the sky, but of the psyche. Every ripple feels like an emotion surfacing, every deep current like a memory stirring. There's something profoundly human about that. The way we project life onto stillness. The way we turn monotony into meaning just to survive it. But then something subtle shifts. When there's nothing left to measure or compare, identity itself begins to dissolve. Who are you when there's no one else to define yourself against? Who are you without borders or contrast, when everything around you is the same soft sound? Maybe the self, stripped of all distraction, becomes what it was always meant to be. Awareness without anchor, just presence, just existence. There's a reason ancient meditation practices use repetition, mantras, breaths, chants. The mind resists it at first, like a tide against the shore, but eventually resistance wears away. You stop thinking the words and start feeling them. You stop thinking about breathing and start being the breath. In the same way, the infinite sea reshapes thought. It's not about escape from reality, but merging with it. The ocean doesn't end, and neither do you. Would thought slow down here, or disappear entirely? That question feels almost sacred. In the presence of infinity, perhaps thought doesn't vanish, it transforms. It becomes quieter, subtler, less language and more sensation. You wouldn't think in sentences anymore. You'd think in waves. You'd feel understanding the way you feel wind, something brushing the edges of your awareness, impossible to hold, yet completely surrounding you. And in that surrender, there's empowerment. Not the loud kind that conquers, but the soft kind that endures. The kind that understands that control is an illusion, that peace doesn't come from mastering the ocean, but from trusting it. To live in sameness is to live without control, and yet that's where freedom hides. When every wave looks the same, you stop chasing the next one. You start realizing they were never separate to begin with. Peace in repetition, meaning in motion. It's strange how those words sound contradictory, yet feel true. Because when the external world no longer changes, you discover change within. The sea outside mirrors the sea within, and suddenly you notice how your own mind moves, rising, falling, never still, never permanent. Maybe that's what the infinite sea is trying to teach, that awareness itself is the only real horizon. You might think infinity would make life meaningless, but maybe it does the opposite. Maybe meaning is born from our response to infinity, how we choose to see it. Some might feel trapped by it, others freed by it. It's the same sea, the same motion, but a different story depending on the heart that tells it. That's the psychology of the infinite. It doesn't define you. It reveals you. Over time, the beings of this world might stop naming things. They might stop measuring days or distances. Without change, the concept of more or less disappears. There's only enough water, enough light, enough sound. And from that simplicity, a new kind of intelligence could emerge. One not built on progress or possession, but on perception. They wouldn't think in goals. They would think in gratitude. Maybe that's the quiet revolution this ocean planet offers, a reminder that not every horizon needs to be chased. Sometimes the most profound expansion happens when you stop moving altogether. When you surrender to the repetition, you realize it was never the same moment repeating. It was always a new moment disguised as the same one. Each wave is born, dies, and is reborn again. That's not monotony, that's eternity, expressed in rhythm. And if you close your eyes, you can feel it, the pull of that idea inside yourself. The part of you that's tired of searching, tired of noise, tired of proving. It's the part that longs to rest, not in sleep, but in surrender. To exist without striving. To feel enough without reaching. The ocean doesn't try to be infinite, it simply is. Maybe that's the deepest kind of wisdom. To stop trying to become something endless, and instead recognize that you already are. The psychology of the infinite sea isn't about detachment from life. It's about remembering what life feels like when you stop fighting it. The more you resist the waves, the rougher they seem. The moment you float, the moment you breathe with them instead of against them, the entire ocean changes. Not because it moved, but because you did. In the end, infinity isn't outside you, it's within. Every thought, every emotion, every dream that loops and returns, carries a small echo of that eternal rhythm. The sea is not just around you, it's in your blood, in your heartbeat, in your breathing. Every inhale pulls the universe closer. Every exhale lets it go. Peace in repetition, meaning in motion, infinity reflected in you. Imagine a civilization that never knew the feel of solid ground. No mountains to climb, no cities rooted in stone, only drifting worlds carried by the pulse of the sea. Here, life builds not from the ground up, but from the waves down. Each structure, each invention must bend with the current, not fight against it. Their cities are alive, vast floating reefs woven with coral that glows like lanterns beneath the water's skin. Homes rise and fall with the tides, and every horizon hums with the rhythm of the world's endless breath. Could cities drift like clouds, changing their shape and direction with every whisper of wind? The people of this ocean world would have no concept of silence. Their language would not be written in symbols or light, but carried through vibration, a song that travels for miles through water, turning distance into connection. Their voices, tuned by evolution, might shimmer across frequencies we could never hear. To them, music is not art, it's architecture. Their buildings hum softly, tuned to the resonance of their The ocean itself becomes part of their communication, carrying every tone, every thought, like a living network of sound. It's strange to imagine a civilization without sight as its dominant sense. But perhaps that's what makes it beautiful. In darkness, sound becomes light. Every ripple tells a story. Every pulse of pressure, a conversation. They would navigate through sonar, the way we use memory, piecing together a world built from echoes, shaped by reflection. Their maps would not be static drawings, but living harmonies, songs that describe the space around them, evolving with every wave. And think about what that does to consciousness. On Earth, we often separate ourselves from the world, the observer and the observed, the thinker and the thought. But for these beings, there is no such split. The moment they speak, the ocean carries their voice away, merges it with its own movement, and sends it back transformed. Their sense of self would be fluid, ever-changing, like the water that shapes them. In their world, communication is communion, not just between beings, but between life and its environment. Their cities might glow from within, clusters of bioluminescent coral woven into organic structures. Imagine walking or floating through streets made of light and song, where homes pulse in tune with the ocean's heartbeat. There's no machinery here, no metal towers piercing the sky. Technology breathes, it grows. It's cultivated like a garden, nurtured with care, built to blend rather than conquer. Their science would not seek to dominate nature, but to dance with it. They would harness the currents the way we harness wind, use temperature shifts to power energy flows, and cultivate giant kelp towers that serve as both habitat and sustenance. Every invention whispers harmony, not control, and yet, even in such serenity, there would be contrast, because intelligence, no matter its form, always wrestles with curiosity. What would a civilization of waves dream about? Would they wonder what lies beyond their endless sea? Would they have myths of a world with sky and stars, stories of beings who once walked on solid ground? Perhaps the idea of above would be their heaven, a place not to reach, but to imagine. Their gods might not dwell in the deep, but in the shimmering ceiling of their world, that ever-changing surface they can never quite touch. The beauty of this thought is how it mirrors us, because we too live within oceans, oceans of air, of emotion, of uncertainty. We build, we drift, we adapt. Every human city, at its core, is a floating structure, trying to balance stability and change. The difference is that we often fight the current, while they would learn to flow with it. They would understand something we've forgotten, that strength isn't rigidity, but flexibility. That survival doesn't mean conquering chaos, but finding rhythm within it now. Imagine their art. It wouldn't hang on walls or stand in galleries. It would exist in movement, in vibration. Entire symphonies could ripple through the ocean for miles, resonating through coral towers and echoing off whale-sized shells. Art would not be seen, it would be felt. You could close your eyes and know exactly where you are by the harmony of your surrounding. Every sound would carry memory, like fingerprints of emotion drifting across water. Their philosophy, too, would be born from the sea. Where we see separation, they would see cycles. Death wouldn't be an end, but a return, dissolved back into the current, spread across the ocean, reborn as sound. They would believe that every voice that ever sang still echoes somewhere, just below the threshold of hearing. To them, the past isn't gone. It's simply quieter. And maybe that's where their civilization becomes truly extraordinary. Because in a world without land, hierarchy has no place to stand. Power can't tower above the rest. It can only move among it. Leadership might not come from control, but from resonance. Those who can listen best, not those who can speak loudest. Build. It's a society built on harmony, literally and spiritually. Every decision would ripple outward, touching all, reminding them that no wave is ever alone. There's a quiet envy that comes with imagining such a world. We, too, long for that kind of connection, to live in flow, to build without breaking, to speak and be heard without distortion. The civilization of the waves is not just an alien idea. It's a reflection of what we could be if we remembered how to move with the rhythms of life instead of against them. So maybe the story of this ocean planet isn't about other beings at all. Maybe it's about us. About rediscovering what it means to build with care, to communicate with honesty, to adapt with grace. The waves have always tried to teach us this, that everything is connected, that motion is meaning, that no sound truly disappears, and if you listen closely enough, even now, even here, you can almost hear it. The song beneath all things. The hum of life moving in patterns too vast to see. The slow, eternal conversation between existence and time. Civilization, not of stone or steel, but of soul. A civilization of the waves. Every world, no matter how infinite it seems, carries within it the quiet seed of its own ending. Even an ocean that wraps an entire planet, boundless, alive, ever-moving, must one day fall still. The story of this water world does not end in destruction, but in transformation. It begins with light, the same light that once gave birth to its blue glow. Over time, that light grows older, warmer, harsher. The star at its center begins to swell, not with anger, but with inevitability. It burns brighter than it ever has before, reaching toward the world it once gently warmed. The ocean, faithful and patient, begins to shimmer in response. Every drop feels the call of its parent star. And so the end begins, not with violence, but with heat. At first it's subtle, a little more vapor in the sky, a softer shimmer on the horizon. The endless waves breathe a little faster, as if the planet itself is exhaling longer sighs. Evaporation becomes its heartbeat. The mists that once danced playfully between clouds and sea now linger, unable to return. The atmosphere thickens with memory, with the ghosts of oceans rising to meet the sun. From space, the planet no longer shines the deep blue of life, but glows in pearlescent white, wrapped in vapor. It's beautiful, but fragile, a glass orb of steam. As centuries pass, that beauty becomes unbearable. The heat deepens, stripping color, silencing motion. The great currents stop their eternal flow. The winds fall quiet. Beneath the thinning clouds, the surface begins to boil. Not in anger, but in surrender. It's as if the planet is giving itself back to the universe, drop by drop. Steam rises in vast columns, merging into the stars' golden glare. Like prayers ascending from a world that once knew how to sing, the ocean's voice, once infinite, now faint hums its final lullaby. Yet, even in this ending, there is grace, because endings, in truth, are never final. The vapor that escapes the planet's grasp drifts into the void, cooling, crystallizing, becoming ice and dust. Some of it will someday seed new worlds, comets that wander through darkness, carrying whispers of oceans long gone. Perhaps one day, far across the galaxy, a drop from this same sea will fall again on another world, under another sun, and life will stir once more. Nothing in the cosmos is ever truly lost. It only changes form, waits for its next beginning. Still, the thought of this quiet death stirs something in us. We've always associated oceans with permanence, with depth, with continuity. To imagine an entire planet's waters vanishing feels like watching time itself evaporate. But maybe that's what makes it beautiful, this reminder that even vastness has limits. The end of the water world is not tragedy, but it's truth. Everything that flows must one day rest. Everything that shines must one day fade. And in that impermanence lies the meaning of all creation. For billions of years, this planet knew nothing but motion, storms, tides, waves, and whispers. Its every second was change. So when stillness finally arrives, it is not loss, but peace. The sea turns to vapor, the vapor to memory. Silence replaces song, not as punishment, but as reflection. It is as though the universe pauses, takes a breath, before writing the next verse. And somewhere, perhaps deep beneath the last remaining pools, life lingers. Tiny, resilient forms clinging to the fading warmth. They do not know that they are witnessing the end of everything. They only know how to survive. It is an instinct older than the stars, the will to hold on, to keep breathing even when the world around you begins to dissolve. For a moment they succeed. They remind the universe what it means to hope. Bah! And then, softly, they too dissolve into the great returning. The ocean has kept its promise. It gave life, and it took it back gently. But there is another possible ending. Colder, slower, quieter. Imagine instead that the star grows dim, its warmth fading over eons. The waves begin to freeze from the poles inward, capturing motion in crystalline stillness. Ice spreads like glass over every horizon until the entire planet becomes a mirror, reflecting the faint light of a dying sun. In that frozen silence, there is no fear, only timelessness. The ocean sleeps, perfectly preserved, dreaming of its former self. It becomes both tomb and testament, proof that once it lived and loved and moved. Whether the end comes with fire or ice, it is always poetry. Because this ocean planet was never just a world of water. It was a mirror of existence itself, constant change, ceaseless rhythm, infinite reflection. Its birth was chaos, its life harmony, its death release. And in every phase it taught the same lesson, that beauty is not in permanence, but in the passing, in knowing that nothing lasts, and loving it anyway. Maybe that's why we are drawn to oceans here on earth. We stand before them and feel small, but also infinite. We sense, without words, that they hold every story, beginnings and endings, loss and renewal. And in their rhythm we find something eternal, the reminder that life, like the tide, always returns. So when the last drop of the water world rises to the stars, what remains? Perhaps not silence, but song, one too slow, too vast for us to hear. Perhaps the planet itself becomes memory, carried on the light of its dying sun, echoing through the galaxy as a story. And maybe, somewhere out there, another being, drifting through the dark, will pause and listen. They won't see oceans or clouds or life, only the faint reflection of what once was. And they'll understand, not with words, but with feeling, that even endings are beginnings wearing different names, because that's what the universe does best. It ends beautifully, quietly, meaningfully, leaving behind not emptiness, but space for something new to begin again, even after the oceans have vanished. Their memory lingers in every particle of dust that circles the silent world. The crust bears faint ripples, frozen signatures of tides that once sculpted its face. Beneath layers of mineralized salt, old valleys sleep, places where light once danced in swells and shadows. The air, if any remains, is thin and wistful, tasting faintly of the sea it once held. When cosmic night falls fully, the planet gleams like a pale shell adrift in eternity, whispering echoes of rain and surf that no longer exist. It has become a fossil of rhythm, a sculpture of flow, dot out in the black. Comets drift nearby, fragments of other forgotten oceans. They pass silently, shimmering as they go, leaving thin trails of ice dust that sparkle like lost constellations. Sometimes one collides softly with the empty sphere, showering it in glittering debris. For a brief moment, it looks alive again, as though the universe cannot help but decorate its own ghosts. In that glint, there is tenderness. It is the cosmos remembering itself. Somewhere far beyond the reach of this extinct sea, light from its final sunset still travels. Photons, carrying the signature hue of its once blue surface, rush outward at the speed of forever. Long after the ocean has boiled away, those photons will touch other worlds, other eyes, perhaps even ours. We, unknowingly, may look up at a star and see the color of a sea that no longer exists, proof that nothing dies without leaving a trace. Every moment leaves its light behind, and if consciousness could hover there, watching the planet from afar, it might feel a strange peace. There is a profound beauty in completion. The world is no longer struggling to change, no longer caught in the turbulence of tides or storms. It has finished its story perfectly, line by line, ripple by ripple. The stillness is not emptiness, but fulfillment, the quiet after a song, when the final note lingers in the air. We often fear silence, but here it feels sacred. The silence of having lived completely. Imagine the last whisper of wind as it slides across the frozen remnants of the sea. It does not mourn, it remembers. It hums softly over crystalline plains, carrying the faint echo of waves long gone. And beneath that soundless hymn lies a message, that impermanence is not cruelty, but continuity in disguise. Every ending frees the matter, the energy, the essence to become something new. The planet may never see its oceans again, but its atoms will dance elsewhere, in stars, in dust, in the breath of another world being born, perhaps millions of years later. The same star that once scorched the planet will shed its outer layers, swelling into a red giant, then collapsing into a white dwarf. The gravity that once held the oceans in place will weaken. The remains of the planet may drift outward, breaking apart into rings of icy fragments, orbiting quietly like pearls. From those fragments, new seeds will scatter, each carrying minerals, salts, and frozen memories of water. In time, they may find a younger sun and fall upon a new sphere, delivering the first drops that begin another story. It is not the end. It is a pause between waves that thought should comfort us, because we, too, are waves. Our lives rise and fall across the same cosmic ocean. We begin as part of something vast. We crest for a brief, shining moment, and then we return, dissolving into the rhythm that made us. To live is to shimmer temporarily. To die is to merge again. The ocean planet reminds us that everything we love, the sound of rain, the curve of a horizon, the beating of our hearts, belongs to a larger cycle that never stops. If the beings who once dreamed beneath those waters could have known their fate, perhaps they would not have wept. Perhaps they would have sung louder, loved deeper, moved slower. Maybe they would have understood that awareness itself was the miracle, not permanence, but participation. Every moment of being, no matter how brief, is infinite while it exists. The planet had billions of years to feel the warmth of its star and the cold of its depths. What more could any world ask for? As we imagine the last mists rising, we can almost feel their softness on our skin. The vapor glows for a moment in the starlight before vanishing, as though bowing out gracefully from the grand performance of creation. The universe watches, patient, knowing that what leaves will return. Water, light, thought, they all wander, but they never disappear. Perhaps this truth is what makes the cosmos gentle, despite its vastness. It forgives everything because it forgets nothing. Now the ocean planet is silent. Yet in that silence lies a strange echo, a hum that crosses time itself, the resonance of memory. It's faint, like a pulse buried under layers of distance, but if one listens closely, it feels alive. That resonance drifts through interstellar space, mixing with other frequencies, other songs of worlds that lived and ended. Together, they form the quiet symphony of existence. Every note, every vibration, every molecule hums the same refrain. I was, I am, I will be again. Perhaps someday, a traveler, human or otherwise, will pass this relic of water and wonder. They might pause, sensing something familiar, a tug in their chest, like déjà vu. They'll study its mineral crust, its rings of salt, its frozen scars, and feel an unspoken recognition. I've been here before, because in a way they have. We carry the memory of every ocean that ever existed, etched in the salt of our blood and the rhythm of our breath. The sea's story is ours, to dot so as this planet fades into shadow. Let it remind us of our own fragile brilliance. We are temporary, yet radiant. We are fleeting, yet endless. Like water, we take shape only to lose it again, and in doing so, we become everything. The ocean planet's end is a mirror held to the soul of the universe. When it disappears, we understand that beauty never needed to last forever to be real. It only needed to be. And somewhere across light years and lifetimes, another planet is beginning to cool. Vapor thickens, rain falls, and oceans start to fill its basins. The cycle continues, quiet and eternal. For every sea that dies, another is born. For every silence that settles, another voice begins to rise. The cosmos breathes, and we breathe with it, endlessly, gently, together. The story of the ocean planet doesn't end. It ripples outward, touching us in ways we can't see but deeply feel. It reminds us that even when all seems gone, something always remains. The memory, the echo, the promise of return. And as we drift to sleep beneath our own fragile sky, may we remember that somewhere out there in the dark between stars, the spirit of that endless sea still moves quiet, patient, waiting for dawn. The story began with a ripple, a single vibration across the quiet surface of a forming world. We watched it grow from chaos into calm, from vapor into ocean, from silence into song. And now, at the end of everything, the sea returns to where it began, not in destruction, but in peace. The waves rest, and so do you. There is something profoundly soothing about that. The idea that even the grandest movements of existence eventually exhale into stillness. Every tide, no matter how powerful, finds its way home. You can almost feel it now, that slow, unhurried rhythm that matches your breath. Inhale, a wave rising. Exhale, a wave falling. It's the same motion that guided the birth of this world, the same pattern that shaped galaxies, hearts, and moments of thought. Everything from the swirl of the Milky Way to the blink of an eye breathes in this same tempo. Life isn't something that happens within the universe. Life is the universe, learning how to breathe. Think about how far you've drifted through this journey. You've traveled through the formation of oceans, through civilizations that sang instead of spoke, through the vanishing of seas into starlight. You've witnessed endings that felt like beginnings, and beginnings that disguised themselves as endings. Yet here you are, floating, still, conscious, calm, and connected. Isn't that a kind of miracle? That even after so much change, there's a quiet awareness left, watching, feeling, remembering. You, if you listen closely, there's a hum beneath all of it. It's faint, softer than wind, slower than time, but it's there. It's the sound of existence itself, the background frequency that carries everything from the smallest atom to the largest dream. You can call it memory, or soul, or energy, but whatever it is, it's not separate from you. The same rhythm that made the tides once moved through your blood. The same pulse that guided moons and stars guides your thoughts even now. Wherever you are tonight, you are part of this ocean. There's a comfort in realizing that you don't need to hold everything together. The sea doesn't cling to its waves. It lets them rise, crest, and fall away. The sky doesn't chase each color as it fades. It trusts that another will follow. Maybe that's what peace really means. Not the absence of motion, but faith in its return. You don't have to force calmness. You only need to stop resisting the flow that was always carrying you. And yet, even in stillness, there's a kind of wonder. Imagine the ocean planet now, no longer churning with storms or echoing with voices, just quiet expanses of silver-blue reflection stretching endlessly beneath the stars. Every molecule, every drop, perfectly at rest. The surface mirrors the cosmos above so flawlessly that you can no longer tell where one ends and the other begins. Ocean and sky become the same. It's a sight no creature needs to see to understand, because that unity lives within everything. The separation was only ever temporary. Maybe that's what we forget most often, that we are not standing on the world, queer of it. We don't simply live in time. We are time, flowing moment to moment, always becoming, always dissolving. And if you let that realization sink in, the noise of daily life softens. Worries lose their sharpness. The self becomes wider than the body. You begin to see that peace was never something to chase. It was always waiting beneath the surface, like the calm beneath a storm. Remember how it felt when you first imagined that world of endless water, its horizons stretching forever, its waves whispering secrets of creation. That image wasn't just a fantasy. It was recognition. Some deep, ancient part of you already knew that ocean, because it's the same one that shaped your origins. Every drop of water in your body has been part of stars, rivers, and distant seas. You are, in the most literal sense, the continuation of the universe's first tides. You carry oceans inside you, their patience, their power, their peace. So, as we come to the final drift of this story, take a slow breath. Feel the air move in, the body expand, and then release it, gentle and unhurried. That is the tide returning to shore. That is the cycle repeating, not ending, just folding softly back into itself. Every ending is a folding, every silence a bridge to another sound. Even this moment, though it feels like a conclusion, is simply another beginning that hasn't yet revealed its form. Perhaps, after this, you'll dream of water, be of soft ripples glowing in starlight, of cities that hum beneath the waves. Or perhaps you will dream of nothing at all, just a vast, luminous quiet, where the only thing left is being. Either way, it's okay. The journey has already changed you. You've seen the world rise and fade, and through that vision, you've remembered something vital. Nothing truly disappears. It transforms. It flows. It returns. Let that truth settle where your thoughts usually race. Notice how heavy your eyelids feel, how steady your breathing has become. There's no more searching to do tonight. You've already found what you came for, that place between motion and rest, between sound and silence, the stillness between waves. Stay there for a while. Let it hold you. Let it remind you that you belong not to the rush of time, but to the rhythm of eternity. And when you wake again, in the quiet light of another morning, in the pulse of another heartbeat, remember this. The calm you feel now isn't something you leave behind. It's part of you. Like the ocean, it will rise again whenever you return to it. All you have to do is listen. Listen to the rhythm that has always been yours, the rhythm of the sea, the stars, and your own gentle breath. So tonight, as the waves fall silent and the story comes to rest, let yourself drift. You are not falling asleep. You are returning home, home to the same ocean that made you. Pay a ode to the same silence that cradled the first light. Everything is complete. Everything is one. The waves rest, and so do you. And if this journey has brought you calm, if it has helped your mind slow, your breath deepen, your heart find space again, drift with us once more. There will always be another story, another tide, another quiet world waiting to unfold. Until then, let the night take you softly. Press, you are safe. You are infinite, who are the stillness between waves. Good night.